Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Horror movies get a bad rap. They're cheap thrills, mindless gore, not cinema, blah, blah, blah.
But we here at Sitting in the Dark know better. We know that horror is more than just jump scares and chainsaws. It's a reflection of our deepest fears, our anxieties, Okay, and there's a lot of jump scares and chainsaws.
Join us, Pete Wright, Tommy Metz III, Kyle Olson, and Keenan Diaz, as we cut into the dark heart of horror cinema.
Every episode, we explore a different facet of the genre, from survival horror to home invasions, from zombies to birds. We tickle the tropes, analyze the angles, and sharpen our own axes along the way.
We'll introduce you to the classics that shaped the genre.
Then the modern masterpieces that are pushing the boundaries of terror.
Sitting in the Dark is your guide to navigating the terrifying, thrilling, and sometimes hilariously bad world of horror movies.
We'll help you understand why we love to be scared.
And maybe even convert you into a horror fan yourself.
So turn off the lights, close the basement door,
and join us.
Sitting in the dark.
In a world where podcasts are a dime a dozen, one show dares to stand out from the rest.
The Film Board, a podcast unafraid to tell it like it is.
We're here for one reason and one reason only. Downloads.
That's right. We review new release movies because that's what gets people's attention.
But just because we're in it for the clicks doesn't mean we don't take our job seriously.
We're part of the Next Reel family of film podcasts, and we're proud of it.
Our reviews are just as insightful and thought-provoking as any of our other film podcasts.
It's just that this podcast is all about that sweet, sweet SEO.
The nectar squoze from the tree of Bing.
We're only human, but we're also creators.
And creators eat clicks to survive.
So if you want honest, unfiltered opinions on the very latest movies right on opening weekend,
delivered with the self-awareness of a team looking for downloads,
then tune in to The Film Board.
Where every download counts, but yours counts the most. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Red Dragon is over. Remarkable boy. I do admire your courage. I think I'll eat your heart.
Dear Doctor, I have admired you for years. I wanted to tell you I'm delighted that you've taken an interest in me. I don't believe you tell them who I am. Besides, the important thing is what I am becoming. I have some things I'd love to show you. Until then, I remain your most avid fan.
Two families killed a month apart in their homes. These attacks were highly organized. The victims carefully chosen. This one is gonna go on and on.
That's the same atrocious aftershave you wore in court.
I need your advice, Dr. Lecter.
If you recall well, our last collaboration ended rather messily. How is young Josh and the lovely Molly? They're always in my thoughts, you know.
So it's true the Lecter's actually helping with your investigation.
We may have a little over 3 weeks before this freak does it again.
I might not have time.
I do. I have oodles. You want to know how he's choosing them, don't you? This is a very shy boy, Will.
I know what it's like to have people always thinking that you're different.
He is refining his methods. He is evolving.
What am I doing here?
No one will ever be safe around you, Will.
A note hidden in Lecter's cell.
The killer wants Lecter to answer him through the personal columns.
Lecter gave him your home address.
Hi. I'm a friend of your father's.
Open your eyes.
No.
I am the dragon.
Give me what I need.
Before me, you tremble.
I'll call you if I think of anything else. Would you perhaps like to leave me your home number?
Okay. Here it is, Andy. Red Dragon, remake of Manhunter, prequel to the other two movies we've seen with Anthony Hopkins. This movie, Andy, if you just look at it, just stop, back away from the screen, just look at it on paper and get rid of everything you've watched and tell me this movie should not have been an absolute slam dunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. I think that there are enough elements there that it could have worked.
It could have worked. It should have worked. It should have worked. We've got Hopkins back in the role that he in the position in which the character works very, very well. We've got a great tight thriller of mystery. We've got Ralph Fiennes. We've got Ed Norton. We've got resolution of the actual capture of Lecter and that story that we did not get played out in Manhunter. And I think the intention of the movie functionally should have been great. And why wasn't I blown away by this movie?
That is really the question when you watch this one. I mean, it's insane. I mean, you mentioned some great cast, Anthony Hopkins, Edward Norton, Ralph Fiennes, but then you have Harvey Keitel, Emily Watson, Mary Louise Parker, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Anthony Heald, Frankie Faison are both back. Lalo Schifrin is playing the conductor, which cracked me up. And then Ellen Burstyn as the voice of Grandma. I think it's completely uncredited, her role. So, but yeah, I'm like, why did Ellen Burstyn agree to do this little tiny cameo of just her voice of Grandma? Frank Whaley is in here. It's a great cast of people that somehow just really seems to have been let down in a large capacity. And it's interesting because, you know, you're bringing a lot of elements back. Like Ted Talley is back to work on the screenplay, who had adapted Harris's novel Silence of the Lambs, didn't adapt Hannibal, and that was probably for the best in his case. But he did take this one on as a challenge. And okay, and to the point where some of the actors weren't even going to sign on to do this until they heard Ted Talley was actually adapting the novel. So it makes you wonder, what are the elements that lead this to end up being lesser? And I have ideas.
I am eager to hear them because this movie just sort of mystifies me. Like I'm watching it, everything on screen seems like I should love it, and it does not sparkle. It for some strange reason, it does not sparkle. I wonder if, is that because we're taking Hannibal Lecter, a character who's the last film asked the question, can Hannibal Lecter serve as a central figure in a film? And I propose the answer is yes. That doesn't make the movie great, but I do like Lecter. And then we take him and we relegate him back to this old form. It's a practiced form. It should be great. Is it that there's no charisma between Ed Norton and Hopkins? Is it missing between Keitel and Norton? Is Norton underplaying here? I don't get it.
I guess I don't end up walking out having a problem with Norton. I feel like for me, there are two elements that I feel I end up struggling with in the way that this film is put together. The first is the added elements of more time with Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter. Now, I love the opening. I think that's a great element. We actually get to see the relationship that Graham and Lecter have. We get to understand the way that they had worked together, kind of developed this relationship, and then have Graham actually go through the process of catching Lecter. And the reason that he ends up kind of becoming that broken agent that we saw at the beginning of Manhunter and we see here. But we actually get to really understand that. And I really appreciate having that element here. But then it is a lot of added scenes. Now, I say that comparing Manhunter to this. Again, I haven't read Red Dragon, so I can't specifically call out, like maybe Will Graham does have this many chats with Lecter in the book. I don't really know. But it felt like there were so many extra scenes of Graham just saying, you know what, I got to go back and I got to sit down with Lecter again, just to have Anthony Hopkins, just to have reason for casting Anthony Hopkins again as Lecter. It just felt like we want him back to play Lecter, and we're just going to add all these extra scenes in here. It just felt like too many times that he had to go back and sit down with Lecter. Like it took away kind of some of his agency as an actual agent. Now, I suppose you could argue, and I do have this point also, that one of my problems with Manhunter is there was a lot of William Peterson sitting around by himself, talking to himself, working things out. You could say now he's just kind of working it out, but with Lecter. But we also have a lot of scenes where Jack Crawford is randomly just in the room, and it's just like, okay, so they're doing this just so he has somebody to bounce things off of, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my issues is Anthony Hopkins, not Anthony Hopkins, just too many scenes that feel tacked on just to have Lecter in the movie more.
My memory of the book is not terrific. It's been many, many years, but one of the things that strikes me that I don't think we can have this conversation without just saying out loud, the book was written before Silence of the Lambs, and they're making the movie as a prequel, and I feel like some of the themes are possibly too repetitive in remaking this movie. I don't know why they remade the movie. I don't know if it was just like we just have Hopkins and we're going to do something else with him. But coming off of Silence of the Lambs in particular, noting the Hannibal sort of break, now reintroducing a book that comes off as a prequel is sort of empty calories. Like I've been there already. I know how that relationship between Lecter and the agent is supposed to play out. So that might be some of my exhaustion.
There is an element of rehash for sure, just because Harris's stories are so similar. Like the actual structure of each of the books, Red Dragon and The Silence of the Lambs, follows a very similar pattern, and that I think is hard to escape regardless of where you run into it. Now, I will say I don't have anything that speaks to this, but my hunch is the vast majority of Americans probably haven't seen Manhunter. Manhunter underperformed at the box office. It doesn't have a direct connection, like we talked about in Silence. Silence wasn't made as a sequel. It was made as a standalone movie, and then they made those other movies. This, for a lot of people, might be the only experience they have with Red Dragon.
Right. And it's much more explicit about its tie-in to the Anthony Hopkins Lecter verse, right? With the tie-in at the end of the movie to Clarice coming to visit. So,
yeah. Well, and it also just it feels very much like it's the same team, it's the same people. Everything just feels like they wanted to create something that actually felt cohesive, you know. And so I don't have as much a problem of them deciding to remake it just for those reasons, especially because Anthony Hopkins, like we talked about last time, he seems to enjoy playing Lecter. One more chance, sure, why not? Get him back into the act, performing the character. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it just didn't feel like it needed to be as much. My second point is this. I don't think Brett Ratner is a good director. I think Brett Ratner is a very safe sort of filmmaker. I think he can just put stuff up on the screen, but I don't necessarily think that there's any sense of style or creativity. Like, he's got the same screenwriter as Silence of the Lambs. He has the same DP as Manhunter. Dante Spinati came back to shoot this. Nothing about this seemed like crafted in any exciting way. And I think that's what is so weird about this film, is it just feels like TV direction. Like, it's just, he's here to just get the story on screen. There's nothing crafted about it. Like, we go back to this essentially the same set where we first see Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, where we're introduced in that creepy, the basement of the Baltimore hospital that he's in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Demme and Tak Fujimoto, his cinematographer, crafted, plus sound design, everything else, like crafted a magnificent journey for Starling to kind of go down into the bowels of this place and meet Lecter. The way that they consistently shot through the glass of Lecter and Starling made for an exciting, tense feeling between the two of them. By the time we get Edward Norton down there, I just feel like, okay, for some reason, this isn't creative. This isn't gripping. This isn't scary. This isn't thrilling. Like it just feels kind of flat. And I mean, I'm not saying there aren't some great moments throughout this film. I think that he does manage to capture some pretty exciting things here, but largely it just is filmmaking that feels very rote. He's just doing what the producers want him to do. Like it just feels like every choice is a safe choice.
I'm just sitting here scrolling his credits, and I haven't seen. I mean, he's made more movies than I have, right? As a director, producer, he's doing fine. He's made a lot of music videos. Boy, he and Mariah Carey are tight. The movies that I think of when I think of him, like the movie I think of when I think of him is Rush Hour, and I enjoy that movie. I enjoy the sequels less so, but I don't hate them. I think they're funny movies, and he makes good use of those big personalities that do a lot of driving for those movies, right? Just looking at his collection, there are no other movies that stand out to me as quintessential Brett Ratner movies that I love. None of them. So I look at that and I think, okay, what is it about Brett Ratner, and his background in sort of action comedy and music that applies to this movie? And, does that background help him make this movie? Does it hurt him? I think for me, the answer is probably hurt him. He ends up making a movie that feels like the straight man to a comic that never shows up. The movie never shows up.
No, it never does. It always just feels, like I said, it just feels like what Dino De Laurentiis wanted. Like, yes, just get it on the screen and we'll just tell the story. Like, there's just, especially, I mean, it's, I will say they're hard shoes to fill. He's following
huge
Michael Mann. He's following Jonathan Demme. He's following Ridley Scott. Some pretty big names of people who have made some incredible films. But again, I struggle to understand how you get Dante Spinotti, the same cinematographer from Manhunter, on board to film this, and it just looks like a TV movie. Like nothing about this is interesting. Dolarhyde's house, his creepy Grandma Dolarhyde's whatever it was, like the home for the whatever children, that place should have allowed for some pretty creepy, creative cinematography. Nothing happens, just nothing happens. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Like, I actually don't dislike this film, but it just ends up feeling like safe Hollywood cookie cutter storytelling. And it ends up being like, okay, sadly, kind of forgettable.
Was there anything that scared you? I mean, is there anything that felt threatening?
I mean, nothing really felt, I don't know if threatening, but I genuinely like the performances. And I think so much of what I like boils down to how the performances play together on screen. Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ralph Fiennes, like that pairing on screen works incredibly well for me. Like, I actually really like Ralph Fiennes as Dolarhyde. I think that he is great. My wife thought Ralph Fiennes was too handsome as Dolarhyde, but for me, Ralph Fiennes just embodies what I wanted to see. Now, is it because we're also getting more of his backstory? Like, we get that sense of, again, why is Ellen Burstyn coming in to do an uncredited voiceover as Dolarhyde's grandma? I don't know, but still, that relationship was fascinating to me. Everything about that character worked so much better for me. And then the way that he plays off Ralph Fiennes or off Philip Seymour Hoffman when he captures him, like that sequence is exciting. I really like their relationship. I actually really enjoy his relationship with Reba, Emily Watson's character. Like, that worked so much more for me because, again, they're given some more meat. I think all of this, I give credit to Ted Talley for bringing up more of those little character beats that we get with the characters in this that we didn't necessarily get in Manhunter. I still like Manhunter. It's a great film. But I just like that we're getting a little more meat with some of these characters that I just didn't feel like we necessarily got as much of in that film. And so, did it scare me? No, but I like the way that these characters are behaving with one another.
What's strange is that in terms of just general intensity, the movie does not live up to either of the Hopkins-Lecter verse films. I think there is no scene in this movie that lives up to the eating one's own brain. That is just horrifying.
But is that a script thing though? Or?
Maybe. No, it may be.
Yeah,
maybe it's a script thing. There is no scene that lives up to the intensity of the final sequence of Silence of the Lambs with the night vision glasses. It doesn't live up to that.
Nothing in this franchise lives up to that.
Nothing in this franchise lives up to that. That's an absolutely good point. And so, I don't know. I found myself wish casting this movie that they hadn't, like, I like Philip Seymour Hoffman as Lowndes, but Lowndes is kind of a disposable character, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is anything but disposable as a performer. And I kept thinking, God, why wasn't he Dolarhyde? Like, why didn't we get a Hoffman Dolarhyde? That would have been a hell of a movie.
So does that mean you didn't like Ralph Fiennes as Dolarhyde?
No, I like Ralph Fiennes just great. I think Ralph Fiennes was great, but I felt like he was, again, I think to your point, maybe a little too handsome, right?
No, to my wife's point, I didn't think that.
Oh,
I liked
to your wife's point. No, I like your wife. Probably better than you most of the time. So, no, I can kind of see that. Like, mostly, who are we kidding? I miss Philip Seymour Hoffman. So
I know.
It's hard not to see that. So, anyway, I think there are moves to be made on this particular chessboard of a movie, and I don't know that any of these things ever came together to make a good match.
One of the other elements that we get here is a change to the ending. Now, my understanding is this is actually closer to the ending of the book, where, after Francis has kidnapped Reba, taken her to his place, is trying to go through this thing where this kind of like the red dragon thing that is in his head, that is like the thing that he's working for, becoming against all of these things, wants him to kill Reba. He can't do it. He fakes killing himself, and he uses Frank Whaley's body, whom he had already killed, as the perfect way to get out of this situation. He acts like he kills himself, but really just, shoots Frank Whaley's dead body again, and then escapes. Then he goes and he shows up at Will's house in Florida and goes to take on Will and his wife, Mary Louise Parker, and their young kid. Now, I liked actually having this ending. One of my struggles with Manhunter, as much as I like that, is I just think it's so dumb the way that Will comes leaping through the glass, and then that ending just is very quick and resolves too fast for my taste. This actually gave us a little bit more of an ending, especially because we already knew that Will's wife was unhappy with him returning. And now here we have this threat directly confronting her, their son, and Molly is the one who, in the end, has to actually put the final bullets into Dolarhyde's body. How does all of that play for you?
I feel like by the time we get there, we're in some of the space of thriller and horror territory. It's some of the material that gives me the most anxiety. It's like home invasion stuff. And so it's one of the reasons that I think this story works so well. It's we're watching through the windows. We're coming into the house. We're the safest spaces in our lives are, it turns out, quite permeable. And so I actually think the end of the movie is pretty intense and thrilling, and I like it. I like the fact that Molly pulls the trigger. I think that exchange, those beats work for me. They work for me.
I like this ending also. I think it plays well. Again, could it have been crafted in a more interesting and exciting way? Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely could have.
But there's no savior moment like there is in Manhunter that turned off both of us, like the heroic savior through the plate glass doesn't play.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I think that there's an interesting psychological element that you end up getting here because Will, by this point, has read Dolarhyde's journal and understands his psychology of what had gone on with him as a youth with his grandmother and really uses that to his advantage to save his son as, in a pretty horrific way. Like, I imagine, even though he can tell his son, I did it to save you, I imagine that his kid is going to still have nightmares about what dad was saying to him because it's pretty terrible. It's like, it works, but it's also kind of like scarring, one of those sorts of things,
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, it's like a Peter Pan moment. Like, did you hear that just now, son? A therapist just graduated grad school and they're going to be a future millionaire. Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of interesting things going on with this film, but I just feel like I attribute that to Thomas Harris's original novel and then to Ted Tally's adaptation. Now, is Ted Tally, is he responsible for signing on to do this knowing that Brett Ratner was on board? I think that he knew the people who were going to be involved, but saw an opportunity to do something great, and I think there is an opportunity for him to try to craft something a little more meaningful. I feel like it's probably unfortunate that in the process of doing that, I think he's got the opportunity to do some great things, like give us that opening with Graham capturing Lecter, but also being forced to do the things that the producers are wanting. Like, we want more Lecter in the film, more opportunity for Will to sit down with Lecter.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, and I think there's a well I would like to plumb with you because, and it's not around Lecter, it's around Graham. One of the things that we talked about in Manhunter was the sort of theme of empathy versus madness, right? And the fact that Graham puts himself in this position because his superpower is being able to empathically chain his way into the minds of serial killers. And he's also kind of a super cop. How do we feel about that theme playing out through this character? Is it a believable thing that he would need to have this relationship with Lecter to do the job? I'm curious your thoughts on how Norton is directed to play the same sort of thematic journey of good versus evil, empathy versus madness. Do you get the same intention out of this portrayal? Does it play the same notes for you?
I think it does. I do feel like we're given, I don't know if they ever worked completely for me, but we're given flashes as he's trying to get into the head of the killer, where the directorial choice was to like flash to things that were likely in his head as he was getting closer to being in that place where the killer was thinking. I don't know. It was a little sloppy in its execution, and it ended up being maybe a little too on the nose with trying to kind of craft that. But I do think at least they were trying to figure out how can we make that work a little more. It takes away from Norton, actually, the performative side of Norton doing it, because it's all in the editing and in flash cuts and things like that. We don't actually get him working on the processing as much. And again, maybe that's why Edward Norton doesn't just stand out much as who we want to see as the lead of the film,
Yeah, and that's a real struggle because Edward Norton is such a cerebral actor, right? Like, he has such a breadth to work with that it feels like they took away from him, to your point, so much opportunity to play that role of kind of losing himself in the work of the job, the primal fearness. Like, I wanted Edward Norton primal fear. I wanted to have a guy who was seriously walking that line between two parts of himself. And I mean, there are actors who are capable of delivering a performance like that, and Edward Norton is absolutely on that list. And they really neutered so much of that range by flashbacking him.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because I've seen complaints about him as the lead here. And I love Edward Norton. I think he is a great actor. I enjoy watching his performances in so many things. And I can't help but feel like, again, Ratner just couldn't figure out how to direct a cerebral performance, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that could be a big part of it. Going back to some of the kind of the additions to the film, the style of the film and everything, what do you think of not so much the cinematography look? I mean, I've already expressed my disappointment in Dante Spinati not really being able to do anything creative here, but just the production design, because we're getting a pretty creepy house where Dolarhyde lives. We're getting some interesting ideas like Hannibal Lecter's exercise room that we have.
Okay, I love the exercise room.
You love the exercise room. Okay.
It's because it's like my elementary school gym.
Did it have a chain from the ceiling that they would chain someone? Was this like a dodgeball torture room?
Sometimes the boys and girls are bad.
My God. It was a terrible idea. Well, I think that there is an interesting case to be made of the production design working. Like, they do some interesting things. They find some great locations. I loved when we get into that last sequence in Graham's Florida house, when he and his son are up in that back room and he's locked the door behind, so Francis can't get in. He's ready to shoot him. But as we look down that hallway, like, it has these fantastic divisions, or the way that the wall, it's not just like a straight wall. The wall kind of cuts in and out. So you end up getting these fantastic lines going down the hallway. Like, those moments, there were some places like that were just beautiful and just fantastically designed. I was very excited by some of the location choices that they had here.
Yeah, me too. And you know, I mean, because the disappointment is not in the locations, not even going back into the Baltimore hospital, which is a fantastic location. The disappointment is sometimes they're used in such an anodyne way that and such a sort of procedural way that doesn't live up to its predecessors, right? In that respect.
Absolutely. One scene we haven't talked about, and this goes back, you're just talking a little bit more about Dolarhyde and his psychology. There is something going on with this idea of whatever the dragon is that's in his head, that, you know, he's trying to kind of achieve this dragon status, but also it's like the young Francis Dolarhyde kind of comes up against, especially after he meets Reba, who seems to be so nice and everything. He goes to the museum that houses the real William Blake Red Dragon drawing and eats it as a way to get back at it, to show him who's boss. How does that play for you? And again, I don't know if it's in the book.
Yeah, no, I don't remember, but I have to tell you, like, now that we've watched all of these movies, I don't really understand. Well, and I guess that's the psychosis part. Maybe I'm not meant to understand. I don't understand what he's becoming. Like, I don't understand the nature of ingesting the thing that which you believe you are becoming as part of his transformation. I don't know that I'm meant to. I don't know that that's mine to have. All we need to know is that the means to an end for Dolarhyde are that he has to kill people along the way. And that's what we're focusing on. The fact that he's becoming, I've never been able to get it through either of these movies into Dolarhyde's head the way that I think Thomas Harris would like me to be able to understand transformation this way. Do you have insight on that?
Well, I I think I ended up liking that scene maybe more than you did, because if anything, it actually got me in closer to his psychology of understanding, like, this person has, kind of created this alternate version of himself. He's trying to become this red dragon, and there is this point where he, in order to, like, compensate, actually eats the painting. And I actually find that to be really interesting. And one of those moments in a movie that you're like, this is so, like, such a strange decision to make. But I actually liked it. And Michael, I just looked, it was actually in the novel. I wonder if Michael Mann chose to not include it because it was it can be seen as a stretch. It can be seen as something where you really have to go pretty far to get to a point where somebody does something like that. But I liked the way that it helped me with his psychology. And again, this goes back to what Ted Talley did with the script. I just felt like there was an interesting element to crafting a better understanding of who Dolarhyde was, how broken he was, this element that he had kind of created and everything. I think that they're on the right track here. You're right. Maybe it isn't going maybe it's not as well defined as Thomas Harris wanted it to be or did in the book, but I think that there's a lot more here than we had before.
Well, I mean, because one of the things I know we get in the book is just a lot more childhood trauma stuff for Dolarhyde, right? That we get the implications of being born with a cleft palate, the fact that his family made him feel horrible, monstrous, totally unlovable, and that probably gave him some dissociative identity issues, that he is two identities in one, and that he's transforming to be a bigger, better himself, maybe, right? Does he actually envision that he's going to have wings and horns and stuff? I don't know, but could it be a transition by way of supremely toxic masculinity, like he's the most alpha of all the alphas? Possibly, right? This connection between sexuality and power, and and that's what actually makes him attracted and terrified of Reba, I think, because he's super attracted to her, and that sort of takes him down a peg emotionally, right? He's less alpha because he finds himself liking her and wanting to give her space, and now he's more humanized than he would expect himself to be at this point on his transformation journey. So at this point, I think I'm spitting out some of the language of symbolism, and I don't know in this movie that I 100% buy it all the time. And maybe it's because this movie, as much as it's more of a Dolarhyde movie than Manhunter is, it's still not enough of a Dolarhyde movie that the book is a Dolarhyde book.
Well, yeah. Adaptations are always going to be different beasts as far as the way that the stories play out. I think in the scope of the psychology of a killer like the Tooth Fairy, yeah, I think there's going to be some probably more that you're going to be able to do in a book than here. But I guess I'm just saying that I appreciated that they were trying, like that they tried to give us a little more. Now, some can argue the way that Dolarhyde is portrayed in Mann's film is more mysterious because we're not getting all of that. We're just getting this creepy person who's working toward becoming this godlike being who is still, I mean, you do see some internal struggles and everything, especially as it comes to Reba. But I just felt like there was an interesting attempt here to kind of try to give us some more.
Yeah, yeah. And you can kind of get, in both movies, I guess, the Dolarhyde approach demonstrates that the dragon itself is not salvation, right? Or else he would be saved. And otherwise it's just just another mask for self-loathing and a price to be paid.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting movie. I wish that it had been handled with a different person at the helm. Because, again, going back to the point that we had at the beginning, it's like all of the pieces seem to be here to make something that could really stand out. Like, it just doesn't actually get there.
it's kind of makes it hard to do any sort of rating or review of this movie because it's a movie that relies on a vibe check, right? Like I just didn't feel it. I was not feeling it. And interestingly, I didn't have any transformational awareness from my sense memory of watching this movie the last time. It's the same experience. Like I didn't grow. The movie didn't change. It's the same movie I watched last time and I was uninspired. That's actually kind of a rarity on this show for me. Like usually, I take a lot of years and watch a movie a second time for our conversation, and the movie comes off to me as appreciably different. Not this one.
Yeah, no, not this one. It felt very much the same. Like, and again, I think it speaks to just the rather tepid direction where it just feels like, oh yeah, like I kind of forgot a lot of elements. There were things I remembered, like him eating the painting and stuff like that. But largely, it's just something that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember it, and it'll probably drift from my mind again.
Right. All right.
Yeah, it's a frustrating one, and especially because I think, well, I mean, we knew going in, Anthony Hopkins said he wasn't going to come back and play Lecter again. This was, as far as he was concerned, the last time he would ever be Hannibal Lecter. And I actually like that he walked into this saying one of his goals was to reestablish that this guy is actually an evil serial killer, because Hopkins felt audiences were starting to see him as a likable anti-hero. And he was rightfully a little concerned about that. And so I think you go into this knowing that we're not getting any more Anthony Hopkins. Again, I think that speaks to why De Laurentiis pushed to do this so quickly after Hannibal, because he knew already the box office would be there because Hannibal was a success at the box office. And he also knew that Anthony Hopkins was already pretty old. We got to wrap it up with this guy because you don't want to wait. Although it's interesting. I was actually thinking about this. Had they actually waited and done this 2015 to now, they could have actually de-aged Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
How would that play? A de-aged Anthony Hopkins doing The Irishman, but with Lecter.
Oh my God. That's such an awful image. Right? Like that's an awful image, because I actually think that Anthony Hopkins as an actor, it's so interesting because he's sort of timeless across these three movies, right? Like he does not look that much older than he did in Silence of the Lambs in this movie. So the odds of like taking him at his age now, like circa The Father, and making that Anthony Hopkins try to look like pre-Silence of the Lambs seems like just a nightmarescape, like an AI slop nightmarescape.
I think that it just boils down to the general struggle with de-aging largely. It always still looks a little digital. Like I just always go back to like when after The Irishman came out, there was that person who was doing their own versions of de-aging on YouTube, showing that they could do a much better job than what Hollywood was doing, and they were much better than what Hollywood was doing. And I still feel like Hollywood hasn't quite figured that out. And it does make me wonder if it could have worked, or if it would have, like even like The Irishman felt like an 80, 90-year-old man trying to move like a 40-year-old man, and just
Ridiculous.
Like the movements. That's the problem. It's like I couldn't buy that.
You could tell his back really hurt.
Yeah, right. It's a struggle. So
yeah,
but that would be interesting.
Do you read into at all the dip theory, that there is actually a dip that, when Lecter was under sodium amytal, they were trying to question him, and he gave a recipe for dip. Right? There's that line.
Oh,
yeah. So there are people out there who say that that's a thing that had an actual recipe associated with it. Liver, a known Lecter favorite, sweetbreads of the thymus or pancreas, and make it into a smooth puree with herbs and wine reduction, served with perhaps, you guessed it, some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Interesting.
Why do you do that, human beings? Can't you just let a line be a line? Stop circulating that kind of stuff.
Do you think Lecter was a fan of aspics?
Boy, he is a dandy in aspic if I've ever seen one.
If there is somebody who I think would enjoy a good aspect, I think it's Lecter.
Hands down. Amazing.
Oh my goodness. My last little note, since you could argue all of them actually, but really since Silence of the Lambs, we've talked about the endings that felt tacked on with this series. And this ending, I abhor. Like, I just hate that it goes there, because it's just like, why do we need that to let us know, oh, Clarice is here? One, it starts in 1980, and then it flashes to several years later, not 11 years later, but several, which made me say, okay, so this is all taking place 83, 84, somewhere in the mid 80s. And then, so are we getting a time jump? Is Silence of the Lambs now meant to take place 7 years earlier? Like, it's just one of these endings that pisses me off. It's like, we have Anthony Heald, we've got Anthony Hopkins. Let's do this stupid tie-in.
Yes, and what you're missing is that Anthony Heald comes in and he says, "There's a young person coming to see you, and it takes her 7 years to get there."
Oh, is that?
Yeah, because bureaucracy.
She's still in junior high.
Yeah, there is inefficiency, and their programs had to be cut in order to get her there. We have to laugh, or we'd cry.
Yeah, we have to laugh. That's right. Oh my God. All right. Well, I guess that's everything. So we will be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Fable Forte, Fast Sounds, Romeo, Oriole Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
At Real Memories, we know the importance of preserving life's most precious moments on film. Our dedicated team of editors works diligently to transform your home movies into beautifully crafted compilation videos, ensuring that your memories will endure for generations. But what about the films that have left an indelible mark on your life? The ones that have inspired, moved, and entertained you? That's where Letterboxd comes in. Much like how Real Memories helps you capture and cherish your personal memories, Letterboxd empowers you to create a comprehensive record of every film you've ever watched. With Letterboxd, you can build lists, share your thoughts, and connect with a vibrant community of fellow film enthusiasts. Consider it your own personal cinematic archive, guaranteeing that you'll never forget a film that has resonated with you. Letterboxd offers options for every type of movie lover, just as we provide various packages to cater to your specific needs at Real Memories. Letterboxd Pro, at just $19 a year, takes your movie tracking experience to new heights, unlocking features such as personalized stats, ad-free browsing, and the ability to filter films by streaming services. Think of it as the premium editing package for your movie-watching journey. For the most passionate film aficionados, Letterboxd Patron is the ultimate choice. At just $49 a year, you'll have access to exclusive features and perks, immersing you in a dedicated community of cinephiles. Consider it your personal movie club, tailored specifically to your tastes. And now, listeners of the Next Reel Film Podcast can enjoy a 20% discount on their Letterboxd subscriptions, both new and renewals, simply by visiting thenextreel.com/letterboxd. This exclusive offer is comparable to receiving a special deal on our top-tier packages here at Real Memories. Whether you're preserving your own treasured memories or exploring the vast work of cinema, Real Memories and Letterboxd are here to support you. Embark on your cinematic journey today with Letterboxd, your life in film.
All right, Andy, sequels and remakes. We got a one.
Yes, we are going to be wrapping this up with Hannibal Rising, the sequel that Thomas Harris wrote after Hannibal, the film he made after this. Yes. I don't know. I'm saying too many words now. I'm going to stop.
Yeah. The movie doesn't deserve that many words.
I wonder if the book does.
Yeah, me too. That's the only one I haven't touched.
Yeah.
Do I really? Ugh. All right. How to Do It award season. Did anybody give this one any attention?
It actually did have some recognition. 4 wins with 10 other nominations. At the Saturn Awards, it was nominated for Best Action Adventure Thriller Film, but lost to Road to Perdition. Ralph Fiennes was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but lost to Andy Serkis in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And Emily Watson was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but lost to Samantha Morton in Minority Report. At the Hollywood Makeup Artist and Hairstylist Guild Awards, the makeup work on Ralph Fiennes was nominated for Best Character Makeup in a feature, but lost to Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. For Elijah Wood, I was like,
weird.
Just because his ears and feet? I wasn't sure.
And don't forget that floppy wig.
Face. I'm like, okay, well, anyway. At the Teen Choice Awards, it was nominated for Choice Horror Thriller, but lost to The Ring. This is exciting. At the Toros World Stunt Awards, we always like talking about them. It actually won for Best Fire Stunt. I should say it tied. For the stuntman strapped to a wheelchair with his hands tied to the armrests, he is then lit on fire for a full body burn and rides the wheelchair down the city street. Entire stunt is done by a stunt performer with the exception of the final fall of the wheelchair. The wheelchair then falls on its side with the stuntman in it. It actually tied with the film Windwalkers.
That's an awesome stunt.
It is. I was surprised to learn it was a real person there.
Yeah.
I was like, you could have just had a dummy in that. I would not have bought it. But the fact that it was a real person, I'm like, dang, okay.
Yeah.
Last but not least, the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. Anthony Hopkins, interestingly, not Edward Norton, was nominated for Best Actor. Again, going to the power of that little role of Lecter. He, however, lost to Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo. Ralph Fiennes won for Best Supporting Actor, and Emily Watson was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but lost to Monica Bellucci in Brotherhood of the Wolf.
I can sort of see all of those. I get it.
I need to revisit Brotherhood of the Wolf. I don't remember that movie well enough to even speak to it.
I want to revisit 1 Hour Photo. Just you saying it reminded me how much I want to see that again.
Creepy Robin Williams.
Creepy Robin Williams. Yeah. How to Do at the box office.
For Ratner's film, he had a budget of $78 million, or $137.3 million in today's dollars. The movie opened October 4th, 2002, just 20 months after the last one, opposite Jonah, a VeggieTales movie, and the limited release of Welcome to Collinwood. It landed in the #1 spot, which it held just for 1 more week and would stay in the top 10 for just 5 weeks. Not as good as the previous 2, but still good enough. It would go on to earn $93.1 million domestically and $116 million internationally for a total gross of $209.2 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $1.8 million, only half as good as Scott's Hannibal, but still in the black.
Okay. It's a movie.
I think it boils down to good enough.
Yeah.
Like this film feels like good enough.
It does. It feels exactly good enough. Good enough to make money back. But, we didn't talk about the Ratnerization of Brett Ratner's life. Right?
No. Yeah.
Complicated
the
now.
Fact that, he's definitely been Me Too'd.
Yep.
And I think that, Warner Brothers cut ties with him in 2017 after everything came out.
Yeah.
And I think from then on, he has really only produced, he hasn't directed at least any feature films. He produced Georgetown, and he was on the Lego Ninjago movie as executive producer, but that was also 2017. I don't know. It makes me wonder if he's going to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in TV, there's really nothing in TV, no music videos.
Oh, no, he does have this. He does have the one that Melania Trump sold out for lots of money to Amazon and Brett Ratner. He's doing the documentary for her, a documentary on her life, which is telling. That's it's very telling direction of his ideology and career. So that's his only thing in a number of years is telling.
Wow. I feel like the only time I ever really saw much of him, in person, was actually when I was watching that TV series On the Lot that Spielberg was behind.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of he was a pretty regular judge. It was Carrie Fisher, Gary Marshall, or he might have just been a guest judge. Like Michael Bay came on to guest, John Avnet. But I feel like that's mostly where I that I picture him there, and then I picture him in the Rush Hour films, and that's it. And the X3 he did, or the third X-Men
Last Stand,
film.
Yeah, which was Andy. It was not good.
You know, it wasn't as bad as people say, but the problem was it also was just kind of there.
It just looked so
and
bad.
After following the first two, well,
that whole bridge sequence at the end was so bad. It just looked bad.
Terrible.
Yeah. All right.
But I liked the bit with Xavier and what's his name in the house when when Dark Phoenix like takes them away up into the house, and like that whole thing I thought was actually that was interesting. But again, it's just Brett Ratner just frustrating. And I suppose of all of this, the best thing that has come out of this is that he's just we haven't been seeing much of him for 8 years now.
Well, that's where we go. And that's Red Dragon.
That's it. So, yeah. All right. Well, we'll be right back for our ratings. But first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, wrapping up our Hannibal Lecter series, Peter Weber's 2007 film, Hannibal Rising.
Is your name Hannibal Lecter? Do you recall the events that led to your family's murder? The little boy Hannibal died out in that snow. He was raised in a work camp.
Let's hear you scream, little master.
What he is now, there's no word for it. Do you have any guilty knowledge of the death of Paul Mormoon?
Guilty knowledge? I found them. The men who killed my family.
He was killed in the woods where your family died. His face had been eaten.
Now tell me, Inspector. You lost family in the war?
Yes.
Did you catch who did it?
No.
Then we are both suspects.
It's Lecter. He's tracking them down one by one.
If they catch Hannibal, they'll shoot him.
Stop it now. Forgive them.
Never.
Good evening, Inspector.
All right, listen up. We've got a situation. Group calling themselves the Next Real Family of Film Podcast is out there, and they are not playing by the rules. They offer bonus episodes and early access and in-episode exclusives. They're mailing out stickers at random intervals. We don't know when. We don't know why. And get this. They've got personal podcast feeds, tailored, clean, ad-free. These people are totally off the grid. They are organized. They are passionate. And they have built something big, something cinematic. They've got a Discord channel, not public, exclusive access only. That's where they stream live recordings. That's where the real intel is dropping. If you're not in, you don't know what you're missing. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to run a hard target search of every feed, forum, film club, fan page, and firewall. If there's a movie lover out there who hasn't joined yet, we find them. We bring them in. That's your target. That's your access point. You go there. You go to the family, truestory.fm/join, and you get everything. The perks, the feed, the inside track. We do not stop until every movie lover knows this is not just a podcast. We are on a mission. Now, move out. Letterboxd, Andy. You know Letterboxd. You were just talking about it. thenextreal.com/Letterboxd. What are you going to do for your stars and hearts? You know we are on a limited number of stars and hearts that we have to apportion to these remaining movies. Should we review the score? so far?
According to you, we only have 15 stars to give to this entire 5-film run.
Right.
We both gave Manhunter 4 stars. We both gave Silence of the Lambs 5 stars. I gave Hannibal 1 star. You gave it 2 stars.
Mm-hmm. So I'm at 11, and you're at 10. And our initial goal when we set out on this audacious adventure is to beat
your
15.
Initial goal.
Our initial goal that we both agreed on strongly
in blood
was to beat 5 stars, or to beat 15 stars.
No, to equal 15 stars, not to beat it.
Okay, to equal 15 stars.
That's what you said. You have 15 stars.
I have 4 stars left, and if my goal is to equal 15 stars, I'm in a problematic space.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
This is an example of a film that I think it's fine. It's watchable. It has moments that I enjoy. I don't. It still is kind of forgettable for me. I'm going to go 3 stars, no heart.
Okay. I think on any other day, I would give this movie 2 stars. But because of my commitment to mathematics, I have to give it 3 stars.
You don't have to.
I do. I have to. And that, fair listener, is foreshadowing.
Well, yeah, because you decided to watch all of these films in one weekend. I haven't seen Hannibal Rising, so I have no idea what to expect, except based on what your attitude seems to generally be. I get a sense that I'm not going to worry about it too much.
I don't think you have to worry about it too much.
Are you 3 stars?
No, I'm no heart. I'm no heart.
3 stars and no heart. Okay, so neither of us a heart.
Yeah.
But 3 stars is where over on our count on Letterboxd at the next reel, that's going to average to 3 stars, no heart for this film.
And so you're at 13. I'm at 14 for the series.
Yes.
Good.
Correct. Yeah.
Since we're both keeping scores so fervently.
And I have 0 interest in trying to hit 15.
And yet, you will hit 15 or less.
Will I?
I can't imagine.
But you never know. I could go higher. You just never know.
That would be a spoiler. That would be just to piss me off. We both know that you would be doing that to troll me. That is the only
You're
reason.
saying that based on what you think I'm going to say about Hannibal Rising. Assuming that I will hate it. You never know.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show may be over after next week. I'm just saying. we may come to fisticuffs.
We survived our Women in Prison movie, Roger Corman series. I think we can survive this one.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
All right. Well, you can find the show over at Letterboxd at the next reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film, and you can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about Red Dragon? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right. Go ahead. How did you choose your review this week?
I started searching earliest, but then I didn't end up picking the earliest. I just picked one that is early. It is early.
But random.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you choose?
I went with a 3.5 stars, no heart by Ron Damon, who makes this very astute point. No dragons at all. He's right. Good note. All
right. I have 1 plus a bonus. Lars Lenoir, 3.5 stars, says, I know he's the villain, but taking a girl to touch a tiger on a first date because she previously mentioned she saw a cougar once is baller. And then he goes and hangs tons of dong and ass. A movie for the ages. I don't understand it, but I love it. And the bonus is something we didn't talk about at all. This is 3.5 stars and a heart from Sam Thompson, who says, okay, but why did she grab the tiger's balls?
That's a great point. That was a strange little. I was like, huh, okay,
What
Emily.
a weird moment we're having here.
Yeah. Is that like weird direction from Brett? Like, hey, Emily, just reach down and cup his balls.
Cup his balls, please. There's not enough cupping. Please.
Like, what a strange.
We've got to add that Brett Ratner je ne sais quoi, that just something that only Brett Ratner can deliver. Please, cup the balls.
Cup the balls. All right.
Thanks, Letterboxd.